Hello. I recently did a video on embroidery frames and the history of them. Well, I had someone reach out to me and ask me about the history on a particular type of frame. And I will admit, I didn't know because I had not seen this type of frame before. So I did some investigation and I wanted to share with you the results of what I found out. But first, if you like this video, make sure to do a thumbs up that you like it and click subscribe. That way you can be updated when I put out new videos. I'm trying to do about 2 videos a week. Now on to the results of what I found out. So welcome to More Embroidery Frames in History. The particular frame that I was asked about is known as a tapestry frame, but when you look at it online, you might also see it referred to as a roller frame, or I'll probably mispronounce this, métier à broder ancien. Please, if I butchered that name, please let me know and correct me on how to pronounce that. Now, with this particular type of frame, if you look, it looks similar to a slate frame, sort of a scroll frame, but I would say it looks more like a slate frame. The difference is instead of having pegs in the top and bottom corners to hold the frame together, instead it's got wooden roller discs on the tops and bottoms to help provide extra tension. With this, the earliest I could find examples of this was from about the 18th century, about mid-1700s. I can't find exactly when this type of embroidery frame came into existence, but it definitely became popular in the late 18th and definitely into the 19th centuries. If you look on the right-hand side of the screen, you will see a painting. It's called The Embroidery Lesson, and this was painted in 1876. And if you look, it has the roller discs that is iconic of this particular type of embroidery frame. And here are some more examples of this type of frame in paintings. On the left-hand side is a painting called Lydia at a Tapestry Frame. It was painted about 1881. And again, if you look, it has the roller discs up at the top. On the right-hand side of the screen, this is the funny part. The title is in German, but the painter was French. The painting is Interieur mit junger Frau am Strickrahmen und spielendem Katzen. So pretty much it's a young lady doing embroidery and playing with a kitten. And if you look at the embroidery frame, again, it's got the same wooden discs at both the top and the bottom that is iconic of this particular type of embroidery frame. While I was doing research, finding out about that frame, I also found other frames that I found interesting and wanted to share with you as well. If you look on the left-hand side, I found this portrait online. It was listed as being painted by William Geats, but I couldn't find much more information on it as far as when it was painted or where the painting is at currently. But if you look closely, to me, it looks like a scroll frame. If you look on the sides, you can see the little wooden toggles that would have been rolled on the sides for the tension bars. On the right-hand side of the screen is a painting by Jean-Baptiste, if I mispronounce this, please correct me, Huysman. And he was a Belgian painter, and he was known for his Orientalist scenes. And if you look, it looks like she has just your typical slate frame. And more frames. On the left-hand side is a painting by William Geats. It's called Maternal Happiness. It was painted in 1898. And then on the right-hand side of the screen is, I forgot to write down the date, I believe it was around 1915. It was the early 20th century when this painting was done, and it's called Woman Embroidering by James Braid Sword, and I believe he was an American. And if you look, she has a slate frame in her hand. And more frames in history. On the left-hand side of the screen is a portrait that is Russian from 1780, and if you look, it looks like she has just a a slate frame. On the right-hand side of the screen is a painting done by Jules David. And if you look closely, to me, it looks like she might see. You, I want to say that looks like a scroll frame because it looks like the embroidery has been rolled over the top bar, but I could be wrong. It might be a slate frame, but to me, it looks like it's a scroll frame. And the painting, if you look in the bottom left corner, it's signed Jules David. I tried to do more research on this painting to find out exactly when it was painted or where it's currently at, and I could not find the information. So if you happen to find that out, please let me know. And more frames in history. On the left-hand side is a painting by Nicholas Lefronzin from 1780. And in this painting, it is clearly evident it is a scroll frame because if you look, you can see the two roller bars on the top and the bottom, and the fabric has been rolled over it. On the right-hand side of the screen is a portrait done by Franz Kramer from 1834, and it's a portrait of a girl with an embroidery frame. However, the thing I find interesting about this particular frame, if you look closely, the frame, instead of being a typical frame, it almost looks like a belt you would wear around your waist. It has the little hole and the loop and everything like a modern belt would, and that's what's holding the fabric onto the frame. And more frames in history. On the left-hand side of the screen is a painting of a Chinese embroiderer at an embroidery frame, and this painting is at the University of Oxford. On the right-hand side of the screen is a painting from about 1750, and it's Madame de Pompadour, and she's embroidering. And from the way it looks like this is probably a slate frame, and it's set up just like a table would be. So you have 4 legs and then the embroidery in the middle, which would be where like the tabletop would hypothetically be. And more frames. On the left-hand side of the screen it was actually a larger picture, but to zoom in on the embroidery frame, I just cut off most of the picture, and so you just see the embroidery frame. The picture itself is called Lady Jane Matthew and Her Daughters. It's from about 1790. And if you look closely, I want to say this looks like a slate frame. Like I said, I had to zoom in on the picture, but either way, if it's a slate frame or a scroll frame, I still thought this was neat because again, it's set up like a table. So you have just 2 legs, the feet at the bottom, 2 legs, and then where the tabletop would be is where the embroidery is. On the right-hand side of the screen, I couldn't find much information on this painting. That's why I put the link that I found it at. So I don't know who painted it or when it was painted. If you know any more information on this, please let me know. Put it in the comments below. But the thing that I found most interesting about this painting is if you look, you can see the metal screws on the side of it being a scroll frame, and where she could then add the fabric around the roller bar and then tighten up the screws on the sides. And more frames. On the left-hand side of the screen is a painting by Francoise Hubert. If I mispronounced this, I'm sorry. Drouat. It was painted about 1767, and it's of the Marquis de Comment La Force. And here, to me, it looks like she is also painting with embroidering with a scroll frame. It has the roller bars on the top and the bottom. On the right-hand side of the screen is a painting from 1770, and it's just labeled Portrait of a Lady. And it does not, to me, it does not look like it has the toggles on the side, so it might be just a slate frame. Either way, it's set up with the feet and the legs, and instead of a tabletop, you have the embroidery frame, which seems to be very iconic from this time period. One thing I did notice with looking at the different styles of embroidery frames is in the 18th century, the frames, the legs were on the sides, and it was set up like a tabletop, whereas in the 19th century, there seemed to be just one leg, and then you would put your knees on either side of that one leg, and then the frame was in the middle. On the left-hand side is a painting from roughly about 1766 to 1784. It's labeled as The Fair Lady Working Tambour. Tambour is a type of embroidery. If you want more information on that, check out my previous video on embroidery frames. This painting is at the British Museum. On the right-hand side of the screen is a window, and it is from about 1350 to 1360, and it's German. It says Frau mit Strickrahmen auf Glasmalerei, and it's at the Austrian Museum in Vienna. And if you look closely, it's just a simple slate frame that she's embroidering. And more frames. On the left-hand side is a very simple slate frame. It's very obvious it's a slate frame, and it's from about 1730. And this was done by Martin Engelbrecht. On the right-hand side of the screen is another slate frame, and this one is an engraving labeled Embroidery Lessons, and it was engraved in 1689. And here are some actual examples of embroidery frames rather than just simply looking at paintings. On the left-hand side is a mid-18th century embroidery scroll frame from France. It's housed in the Palace of Versailles. And if you look, you remember what I just mentioned about the legs being on either side. So your feet would be in the middle with the legs of the embroidery frame on either side of you. On the right-hand side it's also an 18th century, but it's a later 18th century embroidery slate frame from North America. It's in the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and this one has the more iconic style that you see more in the 19th century with just a single leg holding up the embroidery frame. One of the differences between these two frames, if you look on the left-hand side, it's a scroll frame. You can see the toggles on the sides, where the screws are to loosen up the roller bar, roll your fabric on, and then roll it tight. On the right-hand side of the screen is just simply a slate frame with the mortises and the tenons. And just in case you're curious, I wanted to throw this in. This is from the Encyclopedia from about 1770, and it just shows you exactly how the tambour embroidery frame was put together. If you have any questions, please submit them below. If you like the video, remember to do a thumbs up and please subscribe.